first major step of the socialist revolution is the overthrow of the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie. Historically, countries emerging out of feudalism, colonialism, or neocolonialism will also have to reckon with the overthrow of feudal or colonial systems of power as well. This manifested in the struggle against landlordism in China or French and US imperialism in Vietnam. Society will undergo a drastic series of shifts during this revolutionary period, out of feudalism, colonialism, and capitalism. All the while, the Communist Party must maintain the mass line and walk the tightrope of consolidating gains made through the revolution while also pushing the socialist project forward. The economy of the newly emergent socialist society will often carry the scars of war and the pillage of colonialism. Land reform leading to collectivization of agriculture and the development of industry are instrumental in the construction of the socialist project. The party must maintain the mass line while pushing the socialist project forward and educating the masses into socialism by empowering them to become their own masters. This is called politics in command, and it is the revolutionary line of socialist construction. To focus solely on consolidation will lead to the stagnation of the socialist project, and to focus on pushing socialism forward prematurely will alienate the working masses from the party. It is not enough to merely change the economic base of a society from capitalism into socialism, but the superstructure of society must be advanced into socialism as well. A socialist economy must grow alongside a socialist culture, and one cannot grow without the other to reinforce it. At the same time, during the period of socialist construction, there is also the continuance of class struggle under socialism. Revisionism will rear its ugly head and attempt to steer society and the party away from the socialist project. The capitalist roaders provide a myriad of excuses, from economism to pragmatism, from tailism of the reactionary working class to citing external threats such as invasion or sanctions. Revisionists will use every trick they can to threaten the socialist project. The party must maintain the revolutionary line struggle against revisionism within the party and encourage the advanced workers to hold the party accountable and to insist on maintaining the socialist road. In the aftermath of the revolution, there are two roads: the road of economism, leading to revisionism and capitalist restoration, and the road of politics in command, leading to socialism. The essence of politics in command is summed up in the slogan "Bombard the Headquarters," which is a call for the working class to hold the party accountable, to see through the socialist project, and to maintain the revolutionary course. This is done by empowering the workers to challenge capitalist roaders within the party, a bourgeois headquarters, and the revolutionary faction of the party must place its faith in the revolutionary masses of the working class and maintain its mass line. This was the core concept of the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, and this is why revisionists and bourgeois analysts attack the Cultural Revolution with such ferocity. Much has been written about the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, and it is often described as a period of turmoil and chaos. But these right-wing analyses often only discuss the destructive aspects of the Cultural Revolution and deliberately ignore or downplay the constructive role it played in empowering the working class in China to become masters of their own destinies. Without the Cultural Revolution, the communes in China would not have reached the level of sophistication seen during the 1970s. Had the capitalist roaders succeeded in quelling the Cultural Revolution, the socialist economy would have stagnated and the socialist project would have been undone long before the period of Deng Xiaoping's reforms. In any revolutionary period, there are destructive aspects and constructive aspects, and the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution is no exception. To ignore the constructive aspects and focus solely on the destructive aspects of the Cultural Revolution is to peddle a myth of Cultural Revolution perpetuated by bourgeois analyses and the capitalist roaders, stating that the Cultural Revolution was an ultra-left deviation which damaged the socialist project and necessitated the reforms of Deng Xiaoping. In this manner, history becomes written by the victors, and the unfortunate victors in the Chinese context were the capitalist roaders, who played into the hands of the bourgeoisie by framing the Cultural Revolution as a mistake, a chaotic period beset by ultra-leftist errors rather than an attempt to save the revolution and maintain the socialist project. The necessity of cultural revolution. The revisionist will argue that the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution was not necessary, and that China was already on the socialist road without the need to invoke the masses to bombard the headquarters. But the capitalist roader faction, led primarily by Liu Shaoqi, was actively sabotaging the socialist project by destroying the commune system in favor of the petty bourgeois, rich peasant line. As we previously discussed, revisionism and the capitalist project are often disguised as pragmatism. Liu and his supporters argued that the communes weren't efficient and that state capitalism was needed to build the productive forces. The primacy of building the productive forces over all else is a hallmark of economism and was the rallying cry of the revisionists. The important lesson to note here is how economism was used as an excuse to stall and dismantle the socialist project. Contrary to the line of Mao and the revolutionaries, the capitalist roaders would insist on a prolonged period of state capitalism, with no foreseeable plan to usher in socialist reforms. While Mao's line encompassed a short period of state capitalism, it was always part of the overall plan to keep China on the socialist road, and it never lost sight of the necessity to maintain the socialist project. By the mid-1960s, it became apparent that the bourgeois headquarters was already firmly established in the party, and this necessitated the Cultural Revolution for the preservation of the commune system and for China to maintain the socialist project. Often, the violent and destructive ultra-left elements of the Cultural Revolution are played up by bourgeois analysts, and the democratic and constructive elements of the Cultural Revolution are downplayed or outright ignored. Just as Maoists seek to avoid dogmatism by arguing against the notion that Mao or Marx were infallible gods, we also acknowledge the excesses of the Cultural Revolution, although we argue that these excesses were often very over-exaggerated by the capitalist roaders in order to paint the entire Cultural Revolution as a mistake. However, we still uphold the necessity of the Cultural Revolution and acknowledge that it was absolutely vital to the socialist project. Even admitting that the Cultural Revolution was a good thing is seen as something only a radical and an ultra-leftist would do. By downplaying or denying the necessity of the Cultural Revolution, or by only focusing on the excesses and the negatives, revisionists seek to cater to liberals and to the bourgeoisie. By taking a centrist approach to the Cultural Revolution and saying that there were some good things but mostly bad things, this is also right opportunism and liberal capitulation. Revolutionary communists must admit the overwhelmingly good of the Cultural Revolution as a vital component in the construction of socialism. The Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution prolonged the socialist project in China and stalled the advance of the revisionists until the reforms of Deng Xiaoping tore the socialist project down. As stated previously, class struggle continues under socialism, and China during the 1960s was a society emerging out of feudalism, colonialism, and nascent capitalism, carrying with it all of the vestiges of those systems and the mentalities and cultural aspects they contained. Reactionary thought and culture must be challenged. The masses must be educated into socialism and empowered to dismantle the oppressive vestiges of the old systems. To consolidate and stall the advance of socialism would only enshrine a bourgeois consciousness into the culture and the minds of the Chinese people. The socialist project must advance, and the party must consolidate while actively advancing towards socialism, only retreating where it becomes strategically necessary to maintain the mass line. The legacy of the Cultural Revolution. Today, the Communist Party of China walks a fine line in denouncing and framing the Cultural Revolution as a mistake, while not going so far as to denounce Mao Zedong himself or the proletarian spirit of the Cultural Revolution that it inspired. Doing so would undermine the authority of the Communist Party and delegitimize it in the eyes of the Chinese people, many of whom still regard the CPC as a party of the proletariat. The legacy of the Cultural Revolution is one seen by Maoists as the furthest extent of the socialist revolution currently reached within the global class struggle. It was a period during which the revolutionary working class was empowered to advance the socialist project, to challenge the emergent commandist bureaucracy and the bourgeois headquarters within the party, and to dismantle systems of historical oppression, the remnants of feudal thought and bourgeois consciousness. It was a revolution of the superstructure, to alter Chinese society away from the old ways and into the new way of socialism and proletarian dictatorship. There is a necessity to contextualize the excesses and mistakes of the Cultural Revolution and to critique them, from a Maoist viewpoint, of course. The legacy of the Cultural Revolution is often seen through the lens of those who hold bourgeois viewpoints, and because of this, the Cultural Revolution is universally despised and denounced by reactionaries and revisionists around the world, who criticize not from a constructive or principled viewpoint, but from a viewpoint which aims to denounce the entire concept of a cultural revolution as a necessity in the construction of a socialist society, or to paint the socialist project itself as something violent, chaotic, and destructive, while painting the capitalist road as something peaceful, orderly, and constructive. The capitalist road has done much for China, there's no doubt about that, but it has not built socialism. It has not supported socialist revolutions abroad, and it has not emerged out of this retrograde trajectory. In all likelihood, the Communist Party of China will forever remain on the capitalist road, and this only further necessitates a new cultural revolution. More will be discussed about revisionist countries in a future episode, but the important lesson here is that the Cultural Revolution is absolutely necessary for the establishment and continuation of socialism in order to combat those who would see the revolution co-opted and dismantled from within, undoing the socialist project, and in doing so will negate the sacrifices of all of those who fought, struggled, and died for socialism. So that about does it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Just to review, we talked about the concept of the Cultural Revolution and how it manifested in China, the general necessity of the Cultural Revolution, and the legacy of the Cultural Revolution. In a future episode, we will talk about New Democracy and how it is used to dismantle bureaucrat comprador capitalism within the imperialized world. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Danky Kang, out.